Awesome. Let's take it away. So the title of this talk is Fake It Till You Make It, a backwards approach to data products. So this is my talk in one slide. So my idea is that I believe that one of the fastest and most efficient ways to get people to align with what needs to be done is to put something concrete in front of them to talk about instead of kind of, broad theoretical ideas. And I think one of the fastest ways for us to do that as data people is to just fake the data. So some context here, I am the VP of Data at HealthJoy. We are a Chicago-based health tech company. What HealthJoy does is we provide a platform that empowers employees to make the most of their employer-sponsored healthcare benefits. We do this by consolidating everything into one place. So if you need to schedule an appointment, have a medical bill reviewed, find affordable prescriptions, we provide one place to do that and connect you with the value that your employer is already providing, but without the friction of having to do this yourself. So the way our team is structured is we're a strategic function. We report directly to the CEO. We are not a part of the product org or the engineering org. We are our own organization. And we try to build in what are modern best practices that we think are emerging. So this is everything from the concept of our analysts being full stack or analytics engineers, if you prefer that term, or also working in a product-driven as opposed to a service-driven framework. These are ideas you can read more about in the Fishtown or Locally Optimistic, the DBT communities. We find them to be very effective, and we've been able to build a whole org kind of around these ideas. But one of the things that comes out of working in this strategic kind of framework is we get much bigger asks than if we were just kind of in a more service-oriented box. And they're vaguer, right? This is no longer so much about change this dashboard. Instead, more like, can you optimize our call center? Can you build a financial forecast for us? Can you discover if there's any value in this data? And these are not like poorly formed questions from like stakeholders aren't really thinking through the problems. This reflects the complexity of the spaces working in now. This is part of working at the strategic level. And so I feel our job as data people here is not just to dive in and try and build something and hope it works, but instead to work with our stakeholders to try and constrain the problem, figure out exactly what we think this solution looks like. And this is what I mean by working backwards, is we're going to start with the solution, not just kind of, take your three-pointer and hope it goes in, but instead put things in front of our stakeholders and say, does this solve the problem? Does this solve the problem? Does this solve the problem? And by doing that, you suddenly start to get very concrete discussions, very concrete requirements, that are articulated and you can run with and be much more successful. This process is really cheap. This is where you want to spend your time. You kind of want to build it as few times as you can and get it as close to right as you can. And to get to kind of the point of this, I think you do this by just faking your data. And I don't mean, Monte Carlo bootstrapping. That's cool if you can do it. But I think with what has been, at least to me, surprisingly little vague fake data, you can actually kind of turbocharge these conversations and figure out exactly how you're going to deliver value here. So let's dive into a couple examples. So one thing we were asked to do this last year was to build an ARR model. ARR stands for annual recurring revenue. The thing that's tricky about this is it sounds simple, but this is not an accounting metric. This is not double entry bookkeeping. This is a financial forecast. And so the way that every company interprets what it means for something to be revenue, to be annual, to be recurring is and should be different. It depends on how your company considers when is this contract cleared. Is this a one-off service? Is this recurring? Is this a service that we think we can offer every year? It's basically all corner cases. And it's really hard for folks to explain this, to kind of do the full brain dump for you into requirements. So we had a cross-functional team across the company that was working on this with us, and we were just kind of starting to feel the wheels spinning. So what we did is we just made an entirely fake one. We put a spreadsheet together, we put a forecast together, and we said, if we made a forecast that looks like this isn't even our company's data, but if it looked like this, would you be able to use this? And all of a sudden, the conversations became very concrete. People had very concrete opinions about churn versus contraction, upsells versus expansion, single year versus multi-year contracts, all the corner cases about this broker and this way, this specific product is configured differently in Salesforce. All of it just kind of fell into our laps. After a few rounds of that, then we actually went into DBT. Then we actually built our model. And we just got it right the first time. Our analyst was able to spend time building, and not just building and exploring. And to get to Michelle's kind of testimonials, like the testimonial was like, I've never worked this way before. This is great. Like I had everything I needed, even though we started the project just as vague as some other asks. Next one is a little bit of a bigger idea. We had this really exciting project. We were going to build a feature. It was a data-driven feature. It's around healthcare costs, and I'm going to editorialize this a little bit. Let's just say it was about vision savings. And so the data was kind of this new data we're getting access to, and we knew we wanted to do something with it. But the catch-22 is, this is all HIPAA data. We're not going to have this data until people start using the feature. But the feature still rests on the data team being able to find value in the savings. So, we're sitting around, this is like 18 months out, and people are like, this is great. And then data, you'll find the savings, right? And we were like, can we maybe co-sign this? Can we slow this down? And so what we decided to do is, instead of faking the data, we just faked the entire feature. I was just like, look, I'm just going to assume that we have everything we need. This is 100% effective. And then we pulled some parallel data, vision data from somewhere else that wasn't quite what we needed. But again, doesn't matter. We're abstracting all that away. And I said, hey, if you were to run this feature, and let's say you're going to save money on, going to your ophthalmologist, getting your prescription, you're only going to save this much money. Is that enough money? If we could save 100%, they're like, no, that's too much. We need to look at glasses and contacts too. They're like, okay, well, there's only this many glasses and contacts kind of per 1,000 people per year. Is that going to work? They're like, no, because then the small companies won't see enough savings every year. So we need to include something else. All of a sudden, we didn't have a feature. We didn't have data. We were 18 months out, but we were starting to have very strategic and driven discussions with our product managers about what they wanted to build and how and why. Stuff that we thought we were going to have to wait until we had gone live, and we're just kind of YOLOing it. So again, it was really effective. I was really surprised. And we've done this in a number of other areas, but this is a lightning talk. So if you want to find me online, this is my online presence. And thanks to my friends and my team for giving me feedback on this talk.